On a nearby beach, a naked couple were making love in the sand, canoodling and climbing on each other passionately. Then they heard a loud splash coming from the sea and quickly got up to see what had happened. They moved closer into the water and a police box started to bob up to the surface. The couple were confused by this and the doors opened. The doctor and Louisa emerged out, the TARDIS half sunk in the sea. They all headed for the shore and the doctor thanked the couple for their help. Louisa looked at the couple in a bit of a bewildered stance because they weren't wearing any clothes and questions them if they part of a sexual revolution. The couple politely said yes. It's their freedom and if anyone takes issue they just ignore it. They are lives and they can do what they want. The doctor looks back at the sea. The TARDIS was still bobbing sideways and he says to Louisa that they need to look round where they are so that the TARDIS can repair and leave the naked couple to carry on with their business. Louisa tells the doctor what they are in San Francisco. Judging by the clothes people are wearing and the cars passing by means that the year is 1967, the summer of love. The doctor and Louisa were passing through the streets and Louisa looks at one of the head shops. She persuades him to go in and the doctor asks why. She didn't say but it's something worth looking into. The doctor walked in the store and sees why Louisa wanted to be in here. It's a shop that sells marijuana and LSD. The doctor wasn't interested in that sort of stuff but Louisa was quite naive of having a go at it. A young man approaches her at the counter, calls himself Coyote and says that he's got a better batch of LSD she can try. A man behind the counter pointed a switchblade to Coyote asking him to leave. Louisa was a little apprehensive about it but changed her minds because of Coyote's charming personality. She asks the doctor if she could go with Coyote. The doctor reluctantly agreed to this and told her meet back where the TARDIS is. She leaves with Coyote and Coyote told the doctor that she'll be okay. The doctor was walking around when he gets approached by a girl handing out flowers to random people. She kindly gives the doctor one and he puts it in his linen jacket pocket. He looks up at the sky. It was a lilac color with clouds dotted around and notices a few people on benches shaking hysterically. He approaches one guy and asks him if he had taken LSD. The guy replies yes and says he starts seeing demonic visions of fire and devils. The doctor put his hands between the guy's cranium and psychically links his mind to the guy's. He witnesses ferocious imagery and pulls back quickly. Sweating from his forehead, the doctor got up and starts rooting through the guy's pockets. He finds a couple of sugar cubes and demands where he got these from. The guy suddenly started to float off the bench and started to go into the sky like a balloon. The doctor pulled the guy from the ankle down to the ground and ties up the guy with the wire from a yo-yo to the bench. Coyote takes Louisa into a house on Haight-Ashbury. Coyote heads into the kitchen and Louisa inspects a small wooden cabinet containing vinyl records. She finds the Beatles' Rubber Soul and Revolver. Louisa then sat on the sofa looking at swirly psychedelic art scattered around the house's walls. Coyote emerged from the kitchen with a plate with some sugar cubes on it and takes a small bottle out his pocket gleefully. Coyote puts a drop on one of the sugar cubes and presents it her. Louisa takes it and starts to feel the effects of the LSD. Coyote proudly calls it Mystic Green and takes one for himself. Louisa was lying on the sofa and cuddling herself. She then starts stroking her blonde hair. Coyote was on the floor lying his back smiling and the psychedelic art was making the environment more surreal when dropping acid. It was fun. The doctor saw a police officer outside the Golden Gate Park and told the officer what was going on with LSD taking locals. The police officer scoffed at this and that they had just walked out of their minds. Then the doctor pointed to a brown-haired girl pulling some rope with a man attached floating like a balloon. The police officer gasped at the sight and the doctor also mentions that the sky has turned lilac. The police officer was scratching his head at these events and out of cowardice walked off leaving the doctor without help. The brown-haired girl came up to the doctor with her floating man and discussed what's going on. Her name was Dana and her boyfriend Felix had taken some acid from a college friend of theirs. Felix was like he was in a coma, unresponsive and seemed to have lost all gravity, hence why he's ended up floating like a balloon. The doctor kindly instructed Dana to tie the rope to a tree and Dana placed her floating boyfriend to the nearby tree. Dana suggests that somehow fairies are involved. The doctor was baffled by this and asks why. Dana shows the doctor that various potholes started appearing over the last week and at first she thought was to do with a mole infestation, but some girl from college said that during one night she saw some tiny sparkling fairies emerge from one of the potholes. The doctor walked to a nearby pothole and brought out a tape measurer. He says neither a rabbit or mole could produce a hole like that and spurred some names. Silurians maybe? The doctor decided to climb down pothole and Dana persuaded him not to. The doctor explained he needs to find the answer for all events that are happening because he thinks the human race will decimate it and that what these things will conquer Earth. Dana still thinks the fairies rumor is still possible and the doctor tells her to join him to see if she might be right. The doctor and Dana climbed down the pothole. It was dark so the doctor brought out a box matches and lit one. The two walked a few meters down a dugout tunnel, then some fireflies emerged out the walls and started light up, making easy for the doctor and Dana to see. They kept walking until they reached what seemed to be like a small coliseum made entirely out of soil. The doctor looked round. It was quiet and he felt that something might emerge. Dana walked round the coliseum-like structure. Small archways were surrounding the area and then a childlike voice echoed out. The doctor demanded it to show its face and out of one of the archways emerged a snow-white glowing fairy. The doctor was baffled at first but kept a straight face and approached it. Dana followed him and was amazed by the mystical sight. The doctor questioned it as of how they came to Earth. The fairy gleefully said that they've been here for centuries living underground and the doctor asks if they were the cause for the sky to turn lilac. Dana interrupts to the doctor and he turns to her. She makes the assumption that the fairies have been for who long and that their influence has started to pollute the city. The doctor had a thought of realization and grinned at Dana. He swiftly turned back to the fairy but came face to face with what the fairy's true form actually was. The fairy had changed into a 7-foot pale green-skinned goblin-esque creature with stained glass-colored butterfly wings and spoke in a growly voice. They are called the Riften, a race that feed on chaos and somehow stumbled on a void that had sent them to Earth where they dwell. The doctor moved back and told Dana to get back to the surface. The Riften quickly swooped and picked up Dana off the ground. The doctor shouted out to let her go but the Riften flown into one of the archways and disappeared. The Riften placed her down and started ripping off her paisley dress. A tendril from its body emerged out and quickly inserted between Dana's legs. She screamed in pain. The doctor, unsure what to do, decided to go back to the surface and tries to think how to sort out this situation. The doctor emerges out of the pothole and starts to hear loud guitar-driven music. He realizes a concert was going on and can see the Riften flying discreetly to the crowd. The doctor chased after them. A local San Francisco band were performing their set and suddenly got sabotaged by the Riften. The Riften were picking concert goers up in the air and breaking their necks in flight, only dropped them due to the ground like bowling balls. The doctor made his way from the crowd and headed for the stage to confront the Riften. The Riften snarled at the doctor and planned carrying out their invasion. The doctor grabbed a microphone and shouted at the concert goers to flee. The doctor then was confronted by some of the Riften on the stage and verbally threatened the Riften that he'll stop him, but in his head he wasn't sure how. Then he saw Dana float towards him. She was naked and had rainbow colors flowing through her veins. Her eyes were yellowish like owl eyes and she spoke in a mixture of her voice and the Riften's. The possessed Dana explains to the doctor that the people who are floating are vessels for the Riften to take over and that they secretly tampered with the acid with their blood as a linking device for their use. The doctor tried to persuade the possessed Dana to not inhabit the human causalities and leave this world. He can help them. The possessed Dana denies the offer and wants to continue what has been set up. The doctor in another improvised moment brings out the sonic screwdriver and points it to the stage monitor he's in front of. He gives the Riften one last chance but again don't take it and the doctor says that he must have good hearing. The doctor uses the sonic screwdriver and set off a sound wave. The sound wave causes the Riften to scream and one by one they start exploding into glitter like confetti. The possessed Dana also was screaming and a ghostly rainbow colored shot out of her mouth. Dana then fell to the ground and the ghostly rainbow evaporated into the air. The doctor leaped down from the stage and checked Dana. Her eyes were open. She couldn't move but raised her right arm and stroked the doctor's cheek with her finger. She said that she and the doctor saved San Francisco. The doctor murmured his positive response. Dana smiled and lied back to the ground. She stopped moving and sadly died. The doctor was holding the pain for the loss and moved away from the park that had a couple of corpses lying there. The people who were in the comatose state awoke and were holding their heads in their hands like they are having a bad headache. The doctor passed Felix, who was still tied to the tree, and just left him in that predicament. The doctor returned to the beach where he found Louisa sitting on the sand with her head in her hands and groaning. He asks how her first acid trip went and she replied with all right. The doctor went on about the Riften and Dana. Louisa put her arm around him and jokingly said Dana was a bit young for him. The doctor told her to knock it off and brought himself up. The TARDIS was floating on the sea surface and told Louisa to go back to the TARDIS. They trawled through the water and headed inside. The TARDIS dematerializes and the naked couple look on from the beach, wowed by the sight. The naked man looked at his joint and looks again at the sea.